Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
Foundations.
When one of the scribes came to Jesus, remember, he said to him, "What's the greatest commandment?" When Jesus then said, "Shema, hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. You love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul and strength." And then he actually added to it and said, "And love your neighbour as yourself, and on these hang all the law and the prophets."
Foundations. Understanding the Jewish foundations of our Christian faith. With Robbo Robinson and Mandy Warby.
Welcome back to another program of Foundations. And over the last couple of days, we've been talking about this concept of Shema. We're going to continue that over the next few days. But Mandy, I guess one thing that we can gather from the Jews particularly is the fact of monotheism. They really are very strongly monotheistic, that there's only one God.
Absolutely. In fact, that's actually one of the things that's very unique about the Jewish people. It's a real gift that we got from them, because if you look at any ancient culture, they had so many gods.
Thousands, oftentimes.
Well, yeah. Look at Hinduism. They worship millions of gods. Ancient Egyptology, a plethora of gods. Same in ancient Greek, Macedonian, and Roman, all of that. But when the Jews presented what they believed, first of all, the rest of the world thought that they were a freak show. How could you have only one God?
Yeah, that's right. How boring.
Precisely. And not only that, but you can't even see him.
Yeah.
So it was a very unusual concept. And they have presented to the rest of the world, just one of the many gifts that we've received from the Jewish people is monotheism, the fact that there is one God. So that's one of the very key elements in Shema. Okay, we talked about Shema when God commanded his people. He said, "You will love the Lord your God." He actually said, "Hear, O Israel, hear, Shema, hear, O Israel," which means, we learned last time, that means to be obedient. Yep. It requires action, not just hearing an audible noise. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you will love your Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." Now, the element we're going to look at today is the element of one. The word there, it's a Hebrew word, and it's echad, and it means one. Literally, it's the very first number, echad. But because Hebrew is a very multi-layered language, it means so much more than that. Now, do you remember? That particular Shema is listed in Deuteronomy 6, 4-9. And then when one of the scribes came to Jesus, remember, he said to him, "What's the greatest commandment?" When Jesus then said, "Shema, hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. You love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul and strength." And then he actually added to it and said, "And love your neighbour as yourself. And on these hang all the law and the prophets." So from that, I mean, the Jewish people really focus on the echad, just as in one. And we as Christians can get a little hung up on that and say, well, if it's one, but what about the Trinity? So if you have a look at the word echad, one, it's funny when I try to say those Hebrew words, sometimes I get the and sometimes it completely disappears and I miss that. Anyway, when you look at that particular word echad, it has multiple meanings. Yes, definitely one, as in a singular thing. But it also encompasses other things like only or alone, unique and unified. Now, there are no vowels in the Hebrew language. They are inferred, or you learn what the vowel sound is by certain little marks, dots and squiggles and lines and things like that, but no actual vowels. So when you actually read in the original manuscripts, Shema, it actually will have Yahweh, our God, Yahweh, one. That is how it's actually written. But the verse itself could also read, "The Lord is our God, the Lord alone." And therefore, if God is truly the only God alone, it doesn't necessarily infer that he is just one singular unit. And there are plenty of verses in the Bible that actually demonstrate other uses for that word.
One that comes straight to mind is in the opening chapter of Genesis, where it says, "Let us do this and let us do that." And so there's that reference, I guess, to the Trinity even there.
That's right.
There is that one God, but there's those different personalities, I guess, within
Precisely. But that's where the confusion comes in. So is it us? Is it our? Or is it one. You know, it can be very, very confusing. See, to the Jewish mind, Christians believe in three gods.
Yeah.
To them, that's a blasphemy because the Lord our God is one, Echad. So it's confusing for them. But I want to read just a few other passages or references that actually use the word Echad in different ways. Okay, so in Genesis 1:5, it talks about the first day as being a morning and the evening, the first day. And the word for first is Echad. So that's one, but it's two elements, the evening and the morning.
Yeah, right.
All right. And then Genesis 11:6 is where you've got all the people of Babel being one. It talks of them being one mind, and the word is Echad.
Oh, right.
But there's lots and lots of people.
Yep.
There's not just one person. So
they're
it's-
unified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you've got, if you read in Genesis 40 verse 5, you've got the cupbearer and the baker had dreams on the same night. The word for same is Echad. Again in Genesis 41:25, where it says that they were one and the same, the word again is Echad. It means the same. Exodus 12:46, the word Echad is used to describe the Hebrews eating the Passover in a single night. So the word for single is Echad. The menorah made from a single piece of gold in Exodus 37:22 is the same word, Echad, for the same piece of gold, a single piece of gold. Then the spies who cut down a cluster of grapes in Numbers 13:23, it's saying that it's a single cluster of grapes,
okay.
but the cluster is made up of many, many grapes. So the word Echad is used for single, same, alone, unified. It all has the same meaning. So when we talk about the complexity of God, and you take that into the context of how God described himself, as you mentioned in the very first verse of Genesis, let us make man in our image. Sorry, not the first verse, but when he was creating man in the first chapter. You kind of go, well, hang on, there's more elements to Echad, to this one. So it doesn't actually exclude the Trinity when you take, because what we can often do is we take a verse of Scripture and isolate it by itself, and you build a whole doctrine out of that, but you're not supposed to do that. Context. And you take in all the Bible, from the first verse of Genesis to the last verse of Revelation. Jews will take to the last verse of Malachi. You take the whole counsel of God and you see if there are some conflicting things here, you dig a little deeper like this into these particular words, as this in this case, the word Echad for one, and you go, hang on a second, there's so many dimensions to this. It's not just one as in one singular item or thing. It's much more multi-leveled than that. And you can see that there's absolutely no way that God could be restricted to just that one. He is one God.
Yep.
A very good example of that. You know the trio pastors, Phillips, Craig, and Dean. It's three pastors.
Yep.
One group.
Yeah.
You know, three of them stand on there, but that's just one group. It's Phillips, Craig, and Dean. I know that's a pretty poor, weak example, but it kind of makes sense.
Another weak example I heard years ago was, I think it was Mike Wonke, one of those Christian comedians that talked about like an apple pie. You know, there's different ingredients. You got the apple and you got the pastry and whatever, but it's all just one pie. But it's all the different ingredients that go in to make it up.
Exactly. So this is pretty exciting, and particularly we're going to actually look at the element of one in the context of Shema a little bit in the next program as well. But it's a little bit exciting because the possibilities that you find within the Scripture, like it's not a black and white two-dimensional picture. It's a 3 or 4-dimensional animated coloured feature that you can watch. It's just that much richer. And we're going to look some more about that in the next program. Continue on looking at one.
Looking forward to doing that as we continue to explore and unpack Shema here on Foundations.
This has been Foundations, a look at the Jewish foundations of our Christian faith. For study notes, resources and more, see vision.org.au/foundations.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.